present my second screen. And anything I put there, you'll be able to see. Something new that they asked us to put up on the screen is this little student resources folder. So I've added it to the top of all my classes. In there, if you have any issues, academic support, other things for suggestions, anything in there, just to let you know that stuff's available. I have not browsed through it. There's a lot of things it looks like they're offering, tutoring and things. I have not seen much help in tutoring in the computer area, but if you need any help, feel free to
If I need any help in the computer area, I'll look online for solutions.
Yes. Or maybe you could be the one providing help and maybe even get paid for it, or even put it on your resume that you assisted in some way. Keep that in mind as you develop your skills and think about future job. Anything you do here that shows self-direction, creativity, people skills, initiative while you're in school, think of how that could look on your resume. Like you initiate a particular, or you were participating in a particular thing, especially when it comes to customer service. When you show experience with customer service, that tells your future employer you're not just a look out for myself kind of person. They see someone that thinks about others, they're going to want to hire you. So anything you do, even if it's a small thing that you think seems insignificant, but on your resume you can say, hey, I assisted, I developed, or I worked with assisting other people in a particular area. That means something. Even if you're doing, and now that we have online, you can even do that online. So anything you can do, I think you'd enjoy it, as well as be appreciated by your fellow students. So back to the main course here. The plan now is to get into chapter 9, where the schedule is listed here. Yeah, I got the right schedule listed. Like to get into this. And if it takes longer than a few sessions, I'm happy to spend more time on this. 10, I'm not as concerned with. I'm considering skipping 10 and jumping right to Ajax and jQuery, because these are really powerful things. So we'll see what we think, see how much we can get through here. I'm thinking you'll find this very helpful, and it is a critical thing to understand. All right, so let me grab a PowerPoint for this chapter, and also I'm looking at the book, and we have the example page here. I had the page up here on my other screen. Where did it go? Here, Golden Rocks. No, that's not it. That's the older one. Golden Rocks. We're done with Golden Rocks. This is the one that we're at now. So I'm going to go back a page. This is our starting page, our chapter 9 example called our case study in the book. And, oh yes, the PowerPoint. Let me bring up the PowerPoint for that as well. Going to the shared PowerPoints. Could you tell me your Java or your HTML web page experience? Have you built web pages? What kind of messing around have you done with?
I took the HTML class.
That was in high school?
No, last semester.
Okay, our HTML, okay.
Yeah. I had everything from that.
Okay. So before that, you hadn't built sites or done form kind of sites or anything? Okay. But I'm guessing that you have observed the interesting things going on as you visit sites. And let's just take a Google site, for instance. I'll just pop up. I'll pop up this, even the Schoology site. Let's just take a look at the Schoology site. I guess we don't see any special characters there. Let's see if I go down into particular parts of the page. watch the URL. Sometimes you'll see some interesting things show up here. Let's go to perhaps maybe in a quiz. Might be different for me. No, let's see. If I look on a quiz, let's see if I click add question. Oh, now I see something showing up interesting in the URL where I have a question mark and then some data following a standard URL. And you probably can't even read that, can you? But as you visit pages, even on the Google page, let's do a search on Google. I think that shows up on the Google search page. Let's just do a search for, let's do a search for Jesus. In the Google URL, you will see some interesting things showing up here. That is the way many pages, and I'll put this in Notepad, the way many pages will pass information to other pages. So the URL that shows up there looks like this after a search, and you can do that yourself. Anything after the question mark is data that's being passed into the JavaScript and the server receiving the request for that page. So you can kind of think of it as, I'm looking for this page, and when I get to the whatever's answers this URL, here's some other data I'm passing to you in the URL. Now there's a limit on how much can be passed here, but some pages you'll see huge URL. This is what gets passed to the script, and you can see that Q is being assigned to a variable, or Jesus, the value Jesus is being assigned to the variable Q. But there's also this. It's also being assigned to a variable OQ. The ampersand is what's separating the pieces of data being sent. And now this, I'm not sure what this means at all, but this is being assigned to the variable AQS. And perhaps it's a search identifier somehow, but somehow Google uses that. And also, they're sending to the page that the source ID is Chrome, and IE variable is being assigned UTF-8. That is a way all over the internet this information is sent. What's interesting, you can actually experiment with this data and change it. Let's just search for Arthur and leave that as Jesus, and then see where that URL takes us. I wouldn't be surprised if it takes us to a bad link. Let's try that. Paste that modified URL, see where it takes me. It looks like it redoes the search because it didn't understand, and now the URL, oh no, it's still using that same URL. If I click a link, it takes me to a link, but doesn't show anything else there. So this is where people that mess with sites and try to break sites, once they discover this and discover something interesting showing up here, and you can find this yourself. If you see it's requesting something, you can say, well, what if I requested this? You might find some interesting information on the site that isn't found anywhere else, but you've learned to manipulate that query string. So this is a vulnerability in any site that uses this, because it's visible to whoever's visiting the site. But that's everywhere. And if you're doing security, you have to understand, if I pass my variables this way, anybody using my site can see, because it's non-encrypted, it can see what variables I'm using. And if you have like PW equals something, you're foolishly sharing in plain text some perhaps secret password. So don't use this unless you know you're happy to let the public see the entire query of your website. And that's just the start of it. So let's go back and now look at our little page here and what's happening. And I'll bring up my PowerPoint as well. I have it over here now. That's the Google Docs version. That's the PowerPoint version. Okay. Okay, so we have information, and I just showed you query strings. It's much better to have, well, yeah, hidden form fields can also be sent. It's a thing called, and you'll come across this term, I used it a ton when I was doing a lot of PHP page writing. It's called a put or a get method. Puts are hidden, gets are those URL strings that are public. And the more mysterious and probably the most abused and most vulnerable is the cookies, because cookies have, they're a little more complex, meaning it's easier for people to mess up and have bugs left in cookies, like storing your passwords as a cookie. You don't see it here, but somebody smart can find what's in cookies. The developer screen lets you see all the cookies. So basically, we're going to understand them, be able to describe them, and actually do some of it hands-on with their little example programs. Okay, now they talk about this idea of state information. Best way to explain that would be that example site. I'm signed in. I'll go ahead and put a real name here. Arthur, Gmail, Arthur at emmaus.edu, phone 1234567, and some address 4995 North Range Court, Dubuque 52002. Now, I could have JavaScript that when I click next, it refreshes my page and updates things and presents me a new page. But most of the time, this is a form that when I click this, it takes me to a new page. So right now I'm on order.htm, and I want to go to a new page, which would be the second part of the order of, now that I have my information, I want to now see something. Now I don't know where it's taking me. It just says next. It'd be nice. I prefer sites that instead of saying next, they tell me where next is taking me. But let's see what happens when I click next. Now it's taking me to a sign up for something. And perhaps in the sign up, I want to know who I want to still know who I am, because I spent the time to fill in that form. Look at here in the query string showing up at the top. Go ahead and bring up your own page to that chapter 9. You'll see the query string. It starts at the first ampersand right there. And then, no, it starts at the question mark, and they're separated by ampersand. So I look for the first question mark right there. I'm going to copy that and put it in that notepad so we can examine it. Here's the query string that page is sending. So it's a form with this information being sent when I click on the submit button, which here is displaying sign up. So I see I'm assigning to a variable, or when I reach this page, that page is getting this information handed to them. So I'm going to go ahead and break this up line by line so we can see what information is being sent in this example, separating it by the ampersand. And then let's go ahead and look at the JavaScript code that's getting this information. Notice here, the %40 is a special character representing that the @ sign. I don't put the @ sign in. I have to, what do I call it? Transform it into something that's compatible with URLs. @ signs are not allowed in URLs, so we have to put that there instead. Same thing with spaces. Spaces are not allowed in URL strings, so I replace it with a URL compatible representation. If I actually want a plus symbol, I don't think actual plus symbols are allowed. The plus means there's a space there in the information I'm sending. So all of this has to be, to be able to fit in the query string, has to be put in the right format. Now let's look at the code that handles that. And I might as well go to my WinSCP and download that code, because I'm going to want to be messing with it and seeing what happens.
So I'm going to WinSCP, and I have to reconnect to my server and go up a page, up to data files, and go to chapter 9. Actually, I'm going to drag chapter 9 down to my, I think I actually have a chapter 9 on this side. Okay, so I have a chapter 9 here. And since I haven't made any changes, I know it's the same thing as here because previously have copied everything down. So that's on the server. This is my local copy in my documents folder. Let's take a look at the order to, actually, let's look at the order and see how this works. And then it looks like they haven't given us any JavaScript to write. Either they've embedded it or we're going to have to write our own from scratch. Let's take a look at this order.html in Notepad. I'm going to edit that with, let's see if it brings me to my, oh, I thought it would open Notepad++. Let me open that with edit. Oh, try it again. Order, edit with, and I want to make my editor default be Notepad++. Remember this editor. Notepad++ is kind of halfway between regular Notepad and VS Code. I suppose I could have opened a VS Code. Let's take a look at where they are doing the sending of that information to the next page. So down here, here's all my upper links, containers, page. Here's my sign up form. I should see a form. Here's my form starting. Here's all my information. Here is what determines what URL gets called when I click the submit button. And the way forms work is, since I am not saying the type of action, it's by default setting all these variables as I fill them in. This automatically fills in those variables. I don't have to do anything here to have that basically be in the query strings. See, all these names shown there are shown here. See, name, email, and it's all because the input ID is what determines what gets assigned here in the URL. So forms, by default, automatically do this. There is a way to get forms to send this hidden from the URL, but we'll look at this form first. That making sense? So this form is already done for us. Here's my submit button, and when I click it, it basically says, okay, set all these forms. Now, do we have some hidden? We can say type equals hidden. Here's a bunch of labels and inputs. Maybe they'll be having us put some hidden ones in. We can actually say here, set some information to be hidden. What that means is it's hidden from the actual form page itself, but will show up on the URL. So you wouldn't see it on the page, but it actually gets sent in that URL string. Okay, so it's all about that URL string when I click the form. All right, so look further now into all this that's happening, and I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Without having that in there, when I go to another site, it doesn't remember anything. It doesn't have anything on the query string. But I might want to keep track of who's logged in, what their name was, or what their address was previously. Shopping carts, what have they ordered
before they leave my site, or when they come back. I want to know what they have previously ordered. And a key thing happening here is this state information, it's being stored on the client's computer. It's not me at my server keeping track of where they came from, storing it. Oh, that's an option when I'm serving web pages. When they visit me, I see what IP address they're coming from, or even when they log in, I can track that on my server. But it's a little less load on my server if I can store that information on my client. And it's a little annoying. When this first was coming out, I don't think they told clients all this was happening. They just said, oh, we have this wonderful thing called cookies, and they make it so you can go to your bank and it remembers your account. Well, very quickly people realized, wait a minute, you're leaving that stored on my PC. When I visit somewhere else, that information could possibly get compromised. And it actually has happened. The rules, well, we'll talk about the cookie rules. They're not supposed to do that, but people figure out ways to get around that. So there's my query string that we were looking at, that I've broken up into multiple lines. That's my query string that's appended to the URL. So that's the way a page can send information from one page to another. The nice thing about these query strings is the URL that comes on the left side, it can go to any website. Because it's in the URL, it doesn't matter whether or not I'm at the same server. I could be sending you off to my other server and passing this information in the URL. I cannot do that with cookies. Cookies require that I read them from the same domain that I'm visiting right now. So it's harder to share the information when I send it if I'm storing it in a cookie. Kind of gives a little bit of security there, but not complete, because people know how to hack around that. So what I'm doing here is remembering when I came to that site after that I've asked them for their address. Now that I've gone to the second site, my JavaScript code, or my whatever I'm processing the site with, has this information in the URL. So they don't have to keep typing their information in. So we browse through those two, and if I do sign up, let's see what happens here. If I do sign up for a weekly, now again, if I were doing this site myself, I would not allow the sign up button to even be pressed until they had made required choices. But I'm going to just choose something and now click sign up and see what happens now. Another submit, and following data. It looks like we're going to have to write code here. We are not saving the data or displaying the data that was entered. But I can tell up here, it looks like we're missing something here in the URL. Like we have some code to complete. I see in the URL we're providing this. We have not passed on the state information. So looks like they're going to have us complete the code, because I can see we're not doing something. But we did the first page, and it does send the information onto the second page. Looks like it's the second page we're going to have to edit. And let's see if I go back. Do you think it will remember what I had in my form? Hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, it remembers what was checked there, and it remembers what I had here. Again, that can be something users don't like. When they go back, they don't want to see, especially, what did I order? You don't want someone to be able to come back and see what the order was and have your credit card number show up again. Once they submit the form, you don't want that information stored anywhere. And we'll figure out how to do that as well. So right now, it looks like this page is getting the information passed into it, but is not sending it now to the sign up page. Because when you go to the sign up page, all that information is gone. So I'm guessing that's the first thing they're going to want us to do, is to
add the URL information to the target page. But let's go back and see where our PowerPoint takes us. We've already looked at this by example. Lots of things we can send along there. And there's rules about things in the string. Now, in my information, I need to now process that URL. I can get my query data from particular variables and process it. So this is where my string methods, such as substring, come in very handy. I can split them apart based on their ampersand and read the different variables that have been handed to me in my URL. So location, suppose I had a string like this. I can now say, give me the substring starting at position 1 to the end. So I have query data. And then if I want to split that, because I know there may be ampersands in there, give me the data split into ampersands. And here's their explanation of hidden values. I didn't see any in their example, but they've given you that in our discussion here. So the order that things happen, we've got our form. They fill it out. That builds a query string. I don't have to do anything in my code to do that. That's automatically built right here by having the form. And it just doesn't even matter anything except this. This is all I need to do it. I have an input. That's all that's needed. The labels and things, that's just to make it look nice. And the field set is nicely grouping them. This is what's determining when I click submit that those get put in my query string. The rest is just for looks. Those are sent. Some could be hidden. And then form 2 is supposed to process that and do the sign up. So this is the intended way. I do it with multiple pages just to practice using this. Looking at this, you can probably think, this would be more efficient. I'll just have it all on one page. But no, they're doing this just to get us to practice this kind of thing. If I'm using cookies, they're stored in a different way. And when I bring up a page, I have to inquire of the cookies that I'm expecting to look for. So on the server side, I need to know what the cookies have been named so I can decide or to try to pull that information up from my client. And notice cookies, they say here, they're only available when in my current session. And I'd also say they are only available under the same name as the page you're visiting. You can't visit facebook.com's cookies if your site is emmaus.edu. I can't go grab any cookies except the cookies that are shown under Emmaus. And let's just for now, since we're thinking about cookies, let's look at the developer page that show us cookies. So Shift-Control-J, right? Yeah, I remembered it finally. And underneath, let's see, where do we have cookies? They are in here somewhere. Where are cookies shown? I know they're here somewhere. Elements, sorry, elements. See who can find the cookies first. Is it application? No. There they are, under application, cookies. Notice here I'm at docs.google.com. The only cookies available to those pages are anything with google.com. And I can now view what cookies are being stored by that page. So when I'm looking at forensics,
want to see where someone's been, what have they been doing, I can get an idea of what they were doing on a particular site if I can just get at their cookies. So that's why the Onion browser throws them away, or your safe browsers only store them temporarily and clear them when you're done. This account's cookies, that looks kind of dangerous. And some of these may be encrypted information, or maybe actually the SSID given to me in my certain session. So these are the cookies that this page sees. Now, how to read the cookies from the web page, that's a whole nother challenge, but it's done a different way with different languages. Okay, so now we see I can store cookies on the client's computer, and there is some information. I'm not sure what they're talking about with web storage. I have to look that up. I thought it was only cookies. Let me see if I can see what they mean by web storage. No, I guess before going on, they want us to actually write some JavaScript. So let's get to the JavaScript part now. Now that we've kind of discussed around all this dealing with information, they want a script2 file that we're going to write. And we're going to invoke a script somewhere here. Oh, we've started a script 2. Where have we started script 2? Page. It looks like on page. What page is that? 626. Let's take a look at what they want us to do. We're writing a JavaScript. Might as well use VS Code. I have it here somewhere. And I'm going to create a new file. And here's the code we're putting in here. Let's just put a comment here. And if I save it as JS, it'll automatically, I think, parse it and help do some autocompletes. So let's go ahead and put it in the right place. My chapter 9 copy in the chapter folder. Hey, they didn't say what to call. I think they just want us to call a script. Oh, script2.js. Script2.js.
Why not just call it script.js?
I might have missed the script 1 part, but we'll do the script 2, and if we need, we'll come back to the script 1. Okay, so script 2, we're just putting in here chapter 9. Okay, let's get to the code part, not for this comments here. Okay, what we want to do here is declare some variable named query array as an empty array equals. There we go. And looking for declaring a function populate info. Looking like this. Inside of that function, we're looking for a particular variable. Very special variable. Our query data. We're going to parse the location.search.
We want query data to be a global?
I don't think so. So I'm going to make that a let instead of a var. I like lets whenever possible. If I don't need it, I can always come back and fix it. So now we're going to say, okay, my query data. Notice I've declared it an array already. So no, I have a query array and then query data. Query data equals query data dot substring, and starting at position 1 and to the end. I think if I just did 1, that would also give me to the end of the substring. So I don't think I actually need this second parameter, but I put it in here because they have that in the example in the book. It bugs me if they didn't really need it, why they put it there. Data.length. I'm pretty sure if you only use 1, it means start there and go as far as you can. No semicolon needed. Okay, so I've basically thrown away the first character. That would be that ampersand, no, the question mark symbol. I think. We'll find out. Now, yeah, that's right. The question mark symbol is in there. So now query array, I'm going to now build or fill my array with query data dot splits. Remember our string, we're splitting it on the character ampersand. And in JavaScript, I don't have to use single quote to tell it, use the ampersand character to split my data. Now query array, we've made it a global variable. It is now filled with variable name equals and then some value. And now we're going to do the thing. If in this window we have some listener, we will do, whenever we load the page, so we have that window add event listener. Then we'll do this. Oops. We'll do window add event listener. On the load, we will call the populate info function with false as its third parameter. Otherwise,
Does that if statement need to be outside the populate info function?
Yes, I guess you're right. Yes, that's right. Very good. Yes, because we're defining populate info. I forgot where I was. So I'm just going to add the correct ending parenthesis and finish that. There we go. And let's see, will it re-indent for me? I wish it would. There's got to be a edit re-indent. No, it doesn't. Okay, well, let's see. Let's try a shift tab, see if that works. Yes, shift tab works. I love it. Oops. There. And we have the ever popular else. Now all we're doing is to handle old or new browsers, window.attach event, which it doesn't know about because we're not in an old browser. Window.attach event. This time on load, populate info. And the else if is done. Okay, so script 2 is there. I'm going to save it. And now I need to modify the script. And I need to include script in order 2. Because order 2 is what gets the query string, right? And how about this? Let's just try this. After that,
You've got 2 L's in on load.
Ah, very good. Let's see if I do this. If I had location address, let me do a console.log of the query array. Just for fun. That's just for debugging. And I'm saving it, going to my WinSCP, and going to copy that. Oh, and also, before I forget, I'm going to, there's my script 2. I'm going to copy it over to the server. And now I need to edit order 2 so it actually uses that script. And so I'm now going to edit that. Hopefully it uses mode. Let's see if, no, it looks like it's not using Notepad++ as the default, but at least it's in the list. In the order 2, the very bottom at the end of the body, just before the end of the body, I'm going to put script C equals script 2.js. Now, I've missed something in order. Let's see what they wanted us to do in order. I thought order had everything we needed, but I think maybe in order they put in a hidden field. I think that's what they did. Let's go back. There was a script. Let's go back to order. I think they wanted us to mess with hidden fields in order.html. So I'm going to go back to where they give us that instruction. Oh, it was a quick one. I skipped over it accidentally. It must be a small piece. Okay, or do they just say fill in the comments? I'm looking for script 1. I don't remember telling us to do anything on script 1. No, they just start with the script 2. I don't know where script 1 is. Maybe there's not a script 1. Yeah, I think this is all we need. So I'm going to now, I've updated order 2, saving it. Oops. Wrong window active. Control F, save. And now I'm going back to WinSCP and copying order 2 up to the server, replacing it, and then going back and refreshing the first page. Going back to the first page here. Here I'm in order 2 right now. Let's go back one page. This should refresh because it will call order 2 again. When I click next, it will resubmit the form. And I'm going to open up the console to see that message. Control-Shift-J. Watch my console. And now click next. And did the console show me anything? Oh, didn't see anything show up in the console.
My console shows me stuff.
Maybe it does cache it. Maybe let's try a refresh. There we go. Okay, so I thought that when I click submit, it would resubmit the form. I learned something new. Now I can see when I do that array, I do see my array is full of these strings, now separated by the equal. You getting that same thing?
Yep.
So I can see the elements in that array. are these strings with that strange @ symbol still %40. So now I know my script is working. Before I go any further, I'm happy. I know that I've got that part working. And when I just a console.log of an array, I get that format, expandable in the debugger, in the tool. Okay, so now that we have that, we've got the window listener, so we know on load it's happening. One thing I did not add is the use strict at the top. Let me go back there. I'm not sure how much I really care about use strict, but they did ask me to put that in there. And I think, doesn't that have to be the first line? I don't remember now if that has to be the first line of my script. We'll see if it complains. Do you remember whether it has to be the very first line? Use
No
strict?
idea.
I'll find out, I guess. Oops. Okay, now let's continue to do something a little more interesting. Now our script, we know that we're getting everything. Remember this thing. This is where we get the URL, the query, question mark, and whatever came after that, like A equals 1 and B equals 2, etc. That's the location search. We're throwing away the question mark right there. So I'm going to add that comment. Delete the question mark. And now let's do something more interesting. So far, the state is being handed the information from the previous page. So if I ever close that page, it's gone. With cookies, that information isn't gone. Now they want us to create some hidden fields. And look at those hidden elements, or actually make a element. And oh, we're looking at order 2. Let's look at order 2 now. I'm going to open order 2 from here. I think I like this editor better. Here's order 2. And now we see in order 2, look to the form section in order 2. Everything is of type hidden, but the ID is still there. So we don't see this in my form 2. When we click submit, it doesn't show up. Actually, it doesn't show up on the web page, but it is showing up in the URL. Remember in that URL of form 2? When I click next after this, it does show up. Even though we're not seeing name, address here, it is being submitted in my form. Although they have blank information, it is showing up there in the URL. So I know it has hidden elements because I don't see them here, but they are showing up there. Now let's see what they want us to do with those hidden elements. In script 2, we have a new variable that we put in here inside my populate info. Let's take a look at script 2. Right now we're doing location.search. We're going to now add to our inside of populate info, right? I think they mean it right here. Var hidden inputs is equal to now here comes an important concept here. I do document dot get, or sorry, query select all, selector all, and the input is input bracket type equals hidden. A very important query string. Now hidden inputs, if there are any, will be an array. So down here after the, if I do have a information there, I'm going to add some code here into my populate info to process my hidden inputs. Make sure I got this right. Oh, actually, I put this in the wrong place. This is inside my populate info. I don't need it to be a global variable, so I'll do a let there. And then after this line, before my little, well, actually, I'm going to leave the log there because I'm going to put my hidden input in a separate location here. Now here, I'm going to do for, I'm not going to do a var here. I'm going to do let I equal 0. I is less than, now the query array, I can figure out what they're doing here. Query array dot length I plus plus. Inside of here, here's what they're doing. Hidden inputs, bracket I, a value, query array, I, dot, now it's getting a little weird. Substring. I'm not sure I would do it this way. I think I know what they're doing. Query array I got last index of the equal symbol bracket plus 1. Ending parenthesis. Enter. Now let's see here if I can figure out what they're doing here. They are saying the value of my hidden input at letter I, or at number I, is equal to the value of whatever came after the equal sign for that particular substring. So I'm basically throwing away the variable name and just reading the values, putting them in my hidden inputs values. So I don't know what their names are anymore. I just know hidden inputs have 0 to however many showed up in my query array. So what I'm doing here is creating an array that's only holding the values. And I'm trying to just clean up my code here. Okay. Oh, what's going on? Oh, it pops me over to the right. Okay. Now, to make this readable on one page, I guess I'd have to zoom out a bit. So starting at where I found the equal sign, and notice this one does not have a comma, the length of that substring. This one says, oh, start there, go to the end. Now, we need to what do we need to do now? I think we need to put this in our form 2.
It's past time.
Oh, having too much fun. Yes.
We are.
Well, I'm going to put a console.log there because I think at this point I should be able to see that my hidden inputs is working. Just for debugging, I'm going to do that console. But I'm going to stop recording here. I'm going to play with this a little bit more. You're welcome to stick around or have a great day. Let's see here. Stop recording. The recording will show up in the calendar. That's the whole reason I put it in a separate calendar, so then I can just share the calendar. We'll have future meetings and recorded past meetings.
Okay.